Chapter 8. Its Eyes. Jiang Qian is dead. I watched her die. The creature dropped from the sky, its claws slicing through her neck like a knife through butter, then gleefully tearing into her flesh. Her eyes, wide with terror and despair, were frozen in that final moment. I could feel every gruesome detail etched into my mind. My stomach churned, while rising in my throat. Despite the horrors I faced, nothing could have prepared me for this. But there was no time to throw up now. Without hesitation, I turned and bolted down the alley, away from the scene. The creature was too busy devouring her body to notice me fleeing. It seemed more interested in the dead than the living, and that gave me a sliver of hope. I had no idea what the creature was, but it was clearly not human nor anything remotely animalistic that I knew of. Perhaps it was some kind of mutant, a product of radiation, a beast far beyond human comprehension. But in this fog-covered world, where I've witnessed the existence of a seraph, I've learned that science isn't the only truth. There are mysteries out there, forces beyond our understanding. And somehow, I felt like I'd heard of this creature before. As my thoughts raced, my senses picked up something ahead, forcing me to stop abruptly. My breathing grew heavy. About 10 meters in front of me, I saw another one of those creatures. This one was different, similar in appearance, just as hideous. But this one wasn't the same. It was clutching the lifeless body of Wang Xiao, still feasting on his flesh. His face was gone, reduced to a bloody pulp. If not for his distinct clothing, I wouldn't have recognized him. This was the second creature, the one that had killed Wang Xiao. When I was with Jiang Qian and the others, I hadn't seen what was happening 10 meters away. I had assumed there was only one monster, but now I realized how wrong I'd been. These creatures preferred dead bodies over live ones. If not, I wouldn't have escaped. But when Wang Xiao died, one of them immediately chased us down. That meant another creature had already been feeding on Wang Xiao's corpse. 2 monsters, 1 alley, every escape route blocked. My face went pale. A feeling I hadn't experienced in years. Pure, unfiltered despair settled over me. In my 17 years of life, I've only felt true despair twice. The first time was 10 years ago when I saw those eyes on the moon. The second time is right now. In front of me, the creature finished with Wang Xiao's body, discarding it like trash. Then it turned its attention to me, its crimson tongue licking the blood from its lips. At that moment, I wanted to scream, to curse the world. Damn it, why is it always me? When I was a kid, I climbed onto a rooftop and saw a seraph. It blinded me, and then I fell off, hitting my head so hard they thought I was crazy and locked me up in a mental hospital for a year. Now, just when I was finally getting my life back on track, ready to study hard and take the college entrance exams, I have to face this ugly freak? Some people never encounter this kind of horror in their entire lives. But me? I run into 2 in one night? It's insane. The pressure of impending death brought a surge of anger and frustration I'd kept buried for years. It erupted like a volcano, burning away my fear, fueling a rage I didn't even know I had. Clenching my cane tightly, I faced the monster. My chest heaved with every breath. In that moment, the creature before me wasn't just a man-eating beast. It was every bit of suffering and humiliation I'd endured for the past decade. Not even my aunt or Yang Jin knew the depth of the anger I'd been holding in for so long. I couldn't accept this. Maybe I didn't even realize it myself, but beneath that boiling anger, my tightly shut eyes began to tremble, as if they were ready to open for the first time in 10 years. Shriek dash. The creature let out a sharp cry, eyeing me like a predator sizing up its prey. It leaped towards me. To hell with you, I roared, charging at the monster with my cane. The distance between us closed in an instant. Just as its claws were about to rip through my throat, I sidestepped, narrowly avoiding its attack. But even though I dodged it, I wasn't fast enough. Its claws grazed my temple, leaving a thin line of blood. In the process, the black ribbon around my eyes was sliced off, carried away by the wind. With my eyes still shut, I seized the opportunity. I lunged forward, thrusting my cane towards the monster's stomach with all my might. Crack. The sound was sharp, but my grip suddenly felt light. An instant later, a powerful force struck my back, the monster's tail, knocking me to the ground. I rolled a few times, the pain shooting through my body as I scrambled to my feet. I sensed that my cane had snapped in two. It wasn't exactly a weapon, it was just a blind cane, not made to withstand the strength of such a creature. It was useless now. Damn it. I spat out the curse, tossing the broken piece aside. The cane snapping felt like the last straw, igniting every suppressed emotion within me. I stood there, fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms, drawing blood. I won't give up, I screamed. And in that burst of emotion, something strange happened. A feeling washed over me, something almost serene. It was like a gentle breeze after a storm, a clarity that flowed from my heart to my mind. It touched something deep within me, and that's when it happened. The wall in my mind shattered. It felt like a sun exploded inside me, filling me with an intense heat. My eyes, sealed shut for so long, burned with a searing pain. Then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, I opened my eyes for the first time in 10 years. And the first thing I saw was another pair of eyes. The eyes of a seraph. In an instant, a blazing column of light shot up from the alley, piercing the night sky. For that moment, the night was as bright as day. Chapter 9. The Half-Cane. What a blinding light. What's going on? Is something on fire? That can't be it. There's no building this tall in Sangnan City. Quick, get it on camera. Post it online. The beam of light piercing the sky was so intense that half of Sangnan City noticed it. People stopped in their tracks, excitedly speculating about its origin. Some guessed it was an explosion, others thought it was an optical experiment, and some even said it was a miracle. But only a few truly understood what this light signified. 2 minutes earlier, in the old city, on an empty street, a ripple appeared in the air, as if someone had lifted the corner of a shroud covering the old city. From the ripple stepped 5 figures clad in black and red cloaks. One of them glanced around before moving forward, picking up a no-entry sign from the ground and folding it. As soon as the sign was put away, the silent old city seemed to dissolve like a bubble, revealing its true form. The streets, drenched in blood, were littered with dismembered bodies of strange, grotesque creatures. If Lin Chia were here, he'd recognize these as the very monsters he'd fought, ghost-faced creatures, chopped into pieces and scattered across the ground. There were at least 34 of them. The voidless domain has been reclaimed, the person holding the sign said calmly. Time to call in the cleanup crew. Where's Lao Zhao? He's chasing the 2 ghost-faced ones that got away. That was our mistake, the injured woman, holding her shoulder, said weakly. Don't be too hard on yourself, Hong Ying. No one could have guessed there was a ghost-faced king hidden among them, the man beside her consoled. Do you think the captain will be okay facing it alone? Of course. Don't forget, our captain is a third realm river level powerhouse. He'll be fine. The man paused, his expression darkening. Let's just hope those 2 escapees don't cause harm to any civilians. As he finished speaking, a blazing pillar of light shot up from another direction, illuminating half the sky. All 5 of them turned to look, their eyes wide with shock. Is that? A forbidden abyss has appeared, and this energy, it's insanely strong. This is at least 5th realm immeasurable power, maybe even 6th realm Klein. How could a small city like Sangnan attract someone this powerful? No, this doesn't feel like a human forbidden abyss, the man said, his brow furrowed. Hong Ying's eyes widened as she realized what he meant. You mean? This feels like a divine forbidden abyss, a god's abyss, a divine abyss. At the mention of a god, the group's expressions grew solemn. Which god? Blazing, holy, powerful. And there's this creation aura. If I'm not mistaken, this should be... The man stared at the fading light, enunciating each word carefully. Code name 003, Angel of the Lord, Michael. Lin Chia was in agony. He was suspended in midair, right at the center of the golden pillar of light, his body completely out of his control. Endless energy was pouring out of his eyes. It felt like 10 years ago, when he had looked across the vast universe and met that gaze again. The aura of supreme holiness was as vivid in his memory as ever. The difference now was that 10 years ago, that aura came from the moon. But now, it was coming from his own eyes. The seraphic power and divine might were surging out of his gaze, his eyes like 2 blazing suns, as if they would incinerate everything into nothingness. 10 years ago, the seraph Michael had met his gaze from the moon. 10 years later, Lin Chia opened his eyes, and the residual seraphic power within him erupted. Fortunately, There wasn't much of that power left in his eyes. After 7 or 8 seconds, the light began to fade, and Lin Chia fell from the air, barely managing to steady himself. The radiant gold in his eyes gradually dimmed, leaving only a faint golden hue. If the previous brightness had been akin to the sun, now it was more like a flickering candle. The earlier surge of golden light had been powerful beyond belief, but it didn't belong to him. Now, what lingered in the depths of his eyes was a small amount of seraphic power that Lin Chia could truly call his own. A faint, but real, trace of the seraphic power. Lin Chia took a deep breath and slowly raised his head. The pitch-black sky, the old, dilapidated street, the eerie monsters, the blood-soaked ground. As this nightmarish scene unfolded before him, he smiled. He smiled with genuine joy. After 10 long years, he could finally see the world with his own eyes again. In that moment, the bloodthirsty creatures seemed almost endearing to him. When the seraphic might had erupted from Lin Chia's body, these two creatures had been crushed to the ground, nearly flattened by the divine pressure. It was only when the golden pillar of light disappeared that they began to recover. Looking around in confusion before fixing their eyes back on Lin Chia, bloodlust rekindled. Screedash! One of the creatures let out a shriek and lunged at Lin Chia. Compared to before, Lin Chia was noticeably calmer now. As soon as the creature moved, he predicted its trajectory and threw himself to the side. Lin Chia's speed was indeed slower than the creature's, but his reflexes were astonishingly quick. Those few seconds of early anticipation gave him enough time to dodge. It wasn't that he could see the future, but after opening his eyes, his senses had undergone a drastic transformation. First, his spiritual awareness range had doubled from 10 meters to 20. It had taken him 5 years to expand his range to 10 meters, and now it had instantly doubled. The second change was in his dynamic vision. Within that 20-meter range, Lin Chia's visual processing speed was nearly 3 times that of a normal person, making his reflexes almost superhuman. In close combat, it was as if he could foresee his opponent's moves. As for any other abilities his eyes might grant him, Lin Chia hadn't had the chance to explore them yet. But given the current situation, he didn't have the luxury of time to experiment. The creature, like an arrow loosed from a bowstring, barreled through the spot where Lin Chia had just been standing, smashing a large section of wall. It kicked off the debris with its limbs and launched itself at Lin Chia again. By this time, Lin Chia had already rolled to the side, avoiding the creature's landing point. He reached out and grabbed the half cane that had fallen to the ground earlier. Lin Chia quickly got to his feet, half crouching. His eyes locked on the rapidly approaching creature, both hands gripping the cane tightly. The creature left a trail of afterimages as it charged, the gusts from its speed lifting Lin Chia's black hair. It suddenly tensed its hind legs, propelling its entire body into the air. This time, Lin Chia didn't dodge. He clutched the half cane, his eyes fixed on the creature's gaze. Screedash! The creature's claws slashed out, aiming straight for Lin Chia's throat. Just as the claws were about to touch him, Lin Chia's pupils suddenly contracted. The faint golden hue in his eyes flared up, like kindling thrown into a fire, suddenly blazing into life, as if they were 2 burning furnaces. A trace of divine might, using Lin Chia's eyes as a conduit, surged into the creature's body. In that moment, the creature's perception of Lin Chia changed. He became a supreme being, with 6 wings and a terrifying, overwhelming presence. Under the crushing weight of this divine might, the creature's body froze for a brief moment. In that instant, Lin Chia raised the half cane high and drove it precisely into the creature's right eye.